Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Randy Merritt. I am the chair of the CRTPA. I'd like to call this meeting to order. It's Monday, November 23rd, 1:30 p.m. We are conducting this meeting in person. Additionally, this meeting will be broadcast on Comcast Channel 13, WCOT, as well as online at www.talgov.com. Citizens wishing to provide input at the CRTPA public hearing or meeting may, number one, provide comment in persons at this meeting. Speakers are requested to limit their comments to 3 minutes, or number two, submit written comments prior to the meeting to the CRTPA's website and email us portion of the page. Such comments were due prior to 9 p.m. on November 20th. Any comments received after this time and up to this meeting will be accepted, including the official record of the meeting. Or three, provide live comments during the meeting via video conference by having registered before 5 p.m. on November 20th on the CRTPA's website. No requests to provide comments via video conference were received. I will now open the CRTPA's Regional Mobility Plan public hearing. The CRTPA's regular scheduled meeting will begin immediately after the public hearing. Greg?
Okay, Mr. Chairman, the first item on the agenda is roll call. Yolanda, if you would, please.
Commissioner Merritt,
Here.
Commissioner via BCA.
Here.
Commissioner Dozier,
Here.
Commissioner Maddox, Commissioner Minor,
Here.
Commissioner Matlow,
Here.
Commissioner Richardson.
Here.
Did I miss anybody? Thank you.
All right, Mr. Chairman, first up is a presentation on the Connections 2045 Regional Mobility Plan. As you all know, our Regional Mobility Plan serves as our long-range transportation plan, which is federally mandated. It serves really as a cornerstone of what we do in terms of transportation planning by identifying most all of the major projects that we put forth every year in our priorities list. Jack Pastrua has served as our project manager for this. I'm going to turn it over to Jack and let him take it from there.
Yes.
Thanks, Greg. If you all can't see me, I'm over here at the kiddie table.
Jack, hold on one second. Nick, go ahead.
Just for clarification, we have 4 commissioners, correct? Leon County did. We were missing a commissioner due to him losing his race. Do our weight go back? Does it go back to 3 of us, or how does that work?
I'm getting a negative.
I'm
from
getting
the
the
attorney.
shake from counsel behind you.
This is Thornton Williams for the record. The way it works is our bylaws provide that you can change your membership once a year, then that membership stays intact until the year is over. I don't know when the appointment was made for Commissioner Deloge, but as it stands, the county commission has 4 slots and a vacancy at this point since Mr. Deloge or Commissioner Deloge was not reelected.
So we need to reappoint that position?
You have 2 choices. If the year is up, you can decide to go back to 3 commissioners. If the year is not up and you want to fill that slot, then the Leon County Commission is supposed to then vote in which direction it wants to go. And then the bylaws provide that a written notification will be sent to the executive director as to the decision of the commission.
Last question. That's the chairman year, not a year in which the commissioner was appointed, correct?
It's a year from the appointment.
Okay.
I would encourage you to leave it at 3, but that's y'all's business.
And just for further information, remember when we set the bylaws up for the City of Tallahassee and Leon County, you're each set up with 3 base members. So anything beyond the 3, we dole out those 2 bodies' points among the members that are appointed. So if you all choose to go back to 3, that's fine. If you want to add 4, that's fine as well. That base apportionment, we'll call it, is 3 members for both the City of Tallahassee and Leon County.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. Jack?
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Kristen.
I just wanted to note this for the record. I believe that appointment was made in December of last year, and I had talked to our executive director about this last week. I had planned to bring it up at the county commission at our December meeting. My hope would be that we go back to 3 members, and based on the direction from this board, 1 member, 1 vote. And I know that there's only 3 of us here, but that will be a decision that I assumed we would have to make on, I believe that's December 8th. So that's my intent to bring it up. And I was going to talk to the county administrator about that as well. So just for the record again, Mr. Chair, I think it would be good for us to go back to that.
I agree.
Mr. Chair, real quick.
Yes,
Rick, if you don't mind, Kristen, you don't mind, Mr. Chair, if the minutes could just reflect an agreement amongst the 3 appointees by the county that we move back to 3 instead of 4, if you guys don't mind?
Yes,
Does that reflect
it'd be
in the minutes,
fine.
please?
So noted.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Jack, go ahead.
So thanks first of all, to the board for everybody being so patient with the way that we've been able to move forward with this project. I know it's mandated that we have a drop dead date for moving forward and adopting the plan. So I really do appreciate everybody's patience with the way that we've been moving forward with this. So we are at the final stages of the RMP, which is the adoption of the plan. And it has a couple different components attached to it. And what we wanted to do was walk through, Allison will walk through a presentation. It kind of picks you up from where we left off back in September and provide you a couple updates as to the things that we've changed in terms or augmented in terms of the RMP based on comments that we received. So with that, I'll turn it over to Allison, and she's got the presentation up, so go ahead and take over, Allison.
All right, can you all hear me all right?
Yes.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, everyone. I echo Jack's comments about everyone's patience and flexibility as we have worked through a certainly unique process with this cycle of the update for the regional mobility plan. This has been an exercise in flexibility and adaptation as we've looked for ways to continue our process and make sure that we are engaging and responding in an adaptive and flexible manner. So we just want to go through a few things today to update you on some progress that has been made, and then just kind of set the stage for the final document and its deliverables. So providing an update first off on our public workshop, the final workshop series that we did as a part of the RMP development, showing you a little bit more information about the revised cost feasible plan, introducing the cost feasible plan project sheets, as well as the executive summary, all of which were contained in your agenda packet for the day. So we'll begin with the public engagement. We did have a public workshop series. This was done in October, and at that time, we elected to engage virtually through 3 different virtual workshop formats. So all of these were actually posted up on crtpa.org and were advertised extensively across the county. I have a lot of kudos to give to CRTPA staff and those that they were able to link up with across the 4-county area to get the word out to thousands of people about these workshops and about the materials being available. So many thanks on that. Just a little bit more information about this. Prior to the inception of the workshops, we actually prepared a meeting materials packet. So this included more information about things like our recommendations, some detailed mapping, so that folks could actually spend some time with that either before, during, or after the meetings if they wanted to look at some things in a bit more detail beyond what was provided during the workshops themselves. During the workshops, we had an opportunity for questions and answers, and we had 20 different questions that were asked during our workshops, all of which have been summarized, including the questions and their responses, and posted up on the website. Those questions covered a variety of different topics, but some of the key themes that came up were the role of CRTPA in the implementation of projects, as well as learning a bit more about multimodal project implementation, maintenance and construction methods, project prioritization, and of course, questions on some of the individual projects themselves. The presentations were also recorded, and links to those were made available on the CRTPA website. In addition, we put together an online comment form so that folks that attended the workshops, or even those that did not, that were consuming the meeting materials or the recorded presentations, would have an opportunity to engage with us in another way. So we were very pleased, all in all, with the package that was put together for those workshops. So I also want to just call your attention to the cost feasible plan and just kind of let you see where things have ended up with the cost feasible plan since the last time that we were together as a group. So since we last spoke in September, we made one modification to the actual projects themselves, which was the addition of US 90 or Mahan Drive at Capitol Circle Northeast. So this is just a PD&E phase project in our first horizon year, which is 2026 to 2030. And I'll go ahead and skip forward so you can actually see how this appears in the attachment that is in your agenda packet. You can see it's here, this line item here, the major intersection reconfiguration, US 90 at Capitol Circle Northeast. This is a little bit of a unique project, fairly significant in size and scale. We believed that it was important to go ahead and state the importance and the intent to try to move forward with the design, or with the, study of this project rather. And that additional study and conversations will need to be held with the Florida DOT to discuss how future phases can be funded and implemented. So this is a little bit unique in the scale of our cost feasible plan, in that it is the only project that is not fully funded. So it doesn't go through all of its phases completely as a part of this, but just understand that that was done intentionally to kind of communicate that a little bit more clearly. So that is the only project revision that was made in this since September. So just as a reminder, and I'll come back to that table here in just a moment, what we're seeing is a blend for our capital roadway projects. We have some existing plus committed projects, those projects that already have some funding that is obligated that we expect to be done here in the near term. Our cost feasible projects, which are those that you see in your agenda packet, and then our unfunded roadway needs. And I'll go through each one of those in turn. So first, our committed projects, which you've seen this list before. It has not changed since you have seen it. So this includes a variety of different projects, such as the Bannerman Road, Capitol Circle, Crawfordville, portions of Welaunee and Orange as well. So these are being funded by a mix of FDOT and Blueprint funds. And as I said, funds are obligated, or these projects will be completed here in the near term, which we are defining loosely as the next 5 years. So then we begin in 2026 with our cost feasible plan. So these are the things beyond our committed project list. And so this, as I mentioned, is in your agenda packet and pretty much has stayed the same, except with that addition of the one project that I mentioned. The last time that we were here with you, I pointed out the addition to this table of bicycle, pedestrian, and transit columns. So you can see here in the table that we are trying to be deliberately noting the incorporation of multimodal accommodations where they exist. So anything that says yes on bicycle and pedestrian indicates that we are looking at including bicycle and pedestrian recommendations and facilities of some sort along that roadway. And then the presence of a yes in the transit column indicates that that recommendation runs along a current transit route. So one other thing that is of note that I will just point out here is that we also have our line items here at the bottom that indicate kind of those funding set-asides, where we don't necessarily have to identify specific projects, but instead we can use those as a place for smaller scale projects that may be coming up and allow us to be a bit more nimble. We've actually taken what were previously separate line items for our intelligent transportation system projects and our intersection projects, and we put those into a single line item. So again, really the intent of these line items is about flexibility. And so by putting those together, we feel like we're maximizing flexibility to put funding where it is most needed when those opportunities arise. All of these projects are derived from our priority project list. So when you think about the prioritization of our efforts, we really did start there because that was something that had been discussed and adopted by this group. So everything that is in the funded portion of our cost feasible plan comes from there. There are only 2 projects in the priority project list that were not able to be accommodated within the cost feasible plan. We also have our funded needs, which you see in this table. And this is included in a previous agenda packet as well and has not changed. And these are projects that are not part of the priority project list, but were also not able to be accommodated for funding within our available revenues. So that's really a focus on the capital roadway side, which, as you all know, is the only place that we have to go to that very final step of the inclusion of the cost feasible plan. But I did want to take a moment just to highlight the fact that we are doing a series of recommendations for our bicycle, pedestrian, and transit elements as well, because certainly that's an equally important component of our regional transportation plan. So what you see here is a map highlighting all of our bicycle and pedestrian recommendations, for the 4-county area. You see in blue our bicycle and pedestrian regional mobility plan projects, those recommended projects, and then everything in green from the Tallahassee-Leon County Greenways Master Plan. So I'm not going to go through all of these because I don't want you to be here all afternoon. But I did just want to highlight a couple of things of note. Similar to our roadway projects, we do have some projects that are in progress from our exclusive bicycle and pedestrian projects. You can see a list of those here. They're all in the multi-use path facility type, and you can see that they cover a variety of different jurisdictions, including Leon, Jefferson, and Wakulla counties. So all of these efforts are currently underway. And then we are featuring all of these projects within our regional mobility plan. But as you see in the executive summary, for instance, we just called attention to a subset of them that might be of particular interest, or just to really serve as examples of the types of projects that we have at each of these different facility types. So some of them might include regional type projects that you see here. What we're talking about in regional projects are those that span multiple jurisdictions or kind of have a broader impact across our area. So you can see a few of those examples here that really are those larger scale multi-use path or greenway projects. And then again, a subset of projects here for all of our 4 counties, primarily derived from the individual county bicycle and pedestrian facilities master plans. But you can see some of them are also derived from other supporting planning efforts as well. So ultimately, we are looking at those as a variety of different multi-use paths on and off-street bicycle and pedestrian facilities, and all of those are going to be incorporated into the regional mobility plan. We're also taking a look at transit. This is something that, as you all know, we very much intentionally integrate into all of our plans. And what we're doing right now, I think, is just noting that the Transit Development Plan, the TDP, is actually getting kicked off right now. Typically, those things run a little bit more concurrently, so we're able to take some recommendations from the TDP and fold them into the Regional Mobility Plan when we get to this stage. The TDP this time around is running a little bit behind where the Regional Mobility Plan is. So I think the intent here would be when that is completed, that it can be integrated back into the Regional Mobility Plan, potentially as a modification or, if necessary, an amendment to the plan. But we were able to look at the revenues that are projected to be available by working with FDOT and looking at that transit component. So I also want to call your attention to the project sheets that we have prepared for inclusion as a part of this plan. And you'll see in your agenda packet a series of project sheets, and all of those were prepared for the cost feasible projects. So again, those are our roadway capital projects that are actually slated to receive funding within this plan. And we just want to kind of talk about the intent of the project sheets here. Really, these are intended primarily as a communication tool. There's only so much information you can glean from that financial spreadsheet about a particular project. So hopefully these are supposed to be an at-a-glance reference tool for a project where you can learn about the project, maybe some of the features that it is adjacent to, understand more about what the multimodal features of that project are ultimately going to be, and then how it is going to be funded. So some of the exciting funding information, such as phases and timing, all of that is still being provided here as well. But then you do get a bit more information about what's happening from the multimodal accommodations, some of those specific project details, and then a bit more information about community features and other things. One thing that I'll note is with everything that we do at the regional mobility plan level, this is a starting point. We anticipate that more data, more information will become available as some of these subsequent phases of these projects are underway. And that's where places like truly understanding the full right-of-way, as well as the more in-detail multimodal accommodations, is going to be refined. So we could potentially see tweaks there, but I think we're expressing the intent of what we're looking to have in terms of level of accommodation here. And then I'll also highlight our executive summary that is provided as part of your agenda packet. So again, the intent of our executive summary is certainly to serve as a complement to our regional mobility plan. We want to make sure that it's kind of teeing things up. For somebody that wants to learn a little bit about, what is a regional mobility plan? What are we even doing here? And where can I go within that document to learn more? I think that's a very important function of the executive summary. If you really don't want to read the entire regional mobility plan, but maybe you can understand, hey, if I just go over to this section, that may answer some of my more detailed questions, and hopefully the executive summary can fill that role. Also, we want to highlight some of the key areas that we know are important for FHWA compliance for our overall plan. So we begin the executive summary by just setting the stage a little bit. So you'll see things in there introducing CRTPA as an agency, as well as the regional mobility plan and the process that was involved in developing this plan. We also talk about the project goals and the outreach that were a part of this to help the reader understand what the vision was and how people were able to play a role in setting that vision. And then as we get into the details within the executive summary, you can find things such as the cost feasible plan, as well as highlights, like I mentioned, in bicycle and pedestrian projects, intersection ITS and transit projects, and even a highlight of our regional performance measures. And like I said, all of this really tees up what will ultimately be the full document for the regional mobility plan, which is currently in draft and starting to work its way through review by staff. That will be a 6-chapter document. You can see here the structure. We set the stage in chapters 1 and 2 by providing background information. Chapter 3 gets into the recommendations, and then chapters 4 and 5 set the stage with prioritization and the development of the cost feasible plan. And chapter 6 rounds things out with future studies and other upcoming activities. So with that, I'd like to thank you all for the chance to present and for your partnership throughout the development of the regional mobility plan. It's very helpful to have your participation and your feedback throughout the process. So thank you very much, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Allison. Very, very riveting. Questions? Anybody? Bueller? Okay.
Mr.
So we
Chairman,
need to move to,
the next item will be to take public comment and then come back to the board for a final
is
approval.
there any public comment?
We did not have anyone signed up, but I'd say make the floor open in case anybody
Okay.
wanted.
Is there anyone from the public wishes to address the board?
Mr. Chair.
Dr. V?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This may be a question that I should have probably asked, but since we've been locked down and been having issues with joining meetings with via remote in the woods where we live, we call Gaston. So this document is it? There are no other, Mr. Slade, there are no other opportunities for us to add or delete or modify this document as been presented based on the issues that we may have with some transportation facilities, infrastructure in Gaston County.
All right. Dr. B, there's always the opportunity to come back and amend it after it's adopted, just like any plan that we have. If there's anything substantial today, I would say we want to haul off and do any type of amendment, because what we've presented to you today is what we've presented to the public through 3 public meetings, and it's been the information that we've posted for the last couple of months. But there is always an opportunity to come back, and if you all choose to amend the program or amend the plan anytime in the future.
I think what I would rather do is maybe schedule a one-on-one meeting with staff
Okay.
and present those critical infrastructure, transportation infrastructure that we have in Gaston County to see how we can fit them into this plan for the future.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
If I could, Dr. B, is there anything in particular? Because, I mean, typically for the long-range plan, we put the larger scale projects. If they're smaller bridge projects or things like that, we typically handle those through the TIP process. I was just curious.
What I have here actually are road and bridge problems, and as well as a request for a bike trail for the unincorporated area, and I'm going to work with the municipalities to see if I can pull whatever their issues are and bring them all to staff and see how we can work them into amending this.
I would say then let's meet maybe after the first of the year or something and get a good idea of what you're talking about, and then come back and look to amend the plan if we need to.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Curtis?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did have a quick question. I had jotted down a note here. In the presentation, she talked about the project at Capitol Circle Northeast and Mahan. Can we get some, because we just finished the expansion of Weems Road to alleviate some of the traffic in that intersection. Is it possible that we can, or someone can address what that plan will look like, what is intended to be addressed through that project at Capitol Circle Northeast and Mahan?
Yeah, Commissioner
Allison?
Richardson, or can we take that one? Or
Go ahead, go ahead.
I think in the last regional mobility plan, it was shown as a flyover. One of the things that has changed since then, if you all recall, we have the strategic intermodal system designation, which is a higher level of roads like I-10, 319 North, and US 90 used to be on that system as well. Last year, DOT went through a process of updating the SIS, and we were told that they were going to take 90 off, but they were going to leave Capitol Circle, I'll say east, down to 27 as part of that system. Well, when it finally came out, neither of those roads were on there. So we've been having some conversations with central office. They are going to start that process back up after the first of the year to update the SIS. So we're really going to press them to try to get Capitol Circle put on there, because quite frankly, when you look at, the amount of funding that we have available, we're thinking those improvements or whatever to Capitol Circle and Mahan are probably going to be on the order of $130 to $150 million. We don't have the funds to do that through our other arterial program. It would have to be something like the SIS program to give us access to those funds to get something like that done. But that's why we wanted to at least go ahead and move it through the initial PD&E study, so we can at least continue to move it forward in some way, shape, or form.
Has there been, Greg, any discussion with the city on these improvements? I mean, this is the first I've heard of this project.
It was in the last regional mobility plan. So we've had some preliminary discussions with them, but nothing lately, because again, there's just nothing out there in terms of funding that's available for it at this point.
All right, but I am very curious to know what it is they're proposing for that intersection.
Well, and I think at this point, as I mentioned, the last plan called for a flyover, and that was either taking Mahan over Capitol Circle or vice versa. The things that we've looked at preliminarily, and I'll stress preliminarily, there are a couple of other options that don't require a flyover, but they do have significant right-of-way impacts. But again, we didn't want to get too far ahead of it, and we don't know really where ultimately that large chunk of funding is going to come from.
Okay. Well, I mean, like I said, in light of what we've done with Reams Road to alleviate traffic from that intersection, And when I look at that intersection, I just am not sure of how a flyover is going to fit there.
Well, you can always fit one.
But in terms of right-of-way and, I mean, I'm sure it can be made to fit there, but
Right.
do we actually need a flyover there now in light of what we've done?
And I think that would be part of the discussion. The Weems Road definitely helps in the short term, but over the long term, remember, we're looking out to 2045.
Yeah.
There's going to need to be substantial improvements to that intersection.
Okay? Because what we're trying to do, what we're trying to accomplish is to get people out of cars.
Sure.
Not to build more roads to accommodate more cars, but to get people out of the cars and, making the city and county more walkable and hopefully encouraging, bicycle and other alternative transportation modes rather than building roads for more cars.
Correct.
So I think there ought to be some discussion with the city about.
And there will be.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Kristen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had one other question, but picking up on your questions there, Commissioner Richardson, and congrats on the Weems Road. I know y'all did that
Yeah.
ribbon cutting in a limited way during COVID, but I have driven over there and it looks very nice,
Yeah.
including around the Weems Pond area. I was actually happy to see this come back on the list because I think it wasn't just a flyover, but way back when I heard reference to a tunnel, which also seems a bit absurd in that area. But as we've been working through Welaunee and seeing Falls Chase residential come online, which is about to be annexed into the city,
Yeah.
if you haven't already taken that action, we've already got a lot of traffic challenges in that area. I think Weems is going to help with existing. But as we plan for Welaunee, I mean, I envision people trying to get to the state office complexes in Southwood area from Welaunee, and that's adding more pressure. That's just one of many examples. So I'm glad this is back on the list after the city completed Weems, because I think we need to take that into account. But it seems like there will be challenges in the long term, and that's what you're getting to, right?
Yes,
Great.
ma'am. And
Yeah.
keep in mind, all we've shown funding is that preliminary
Yeah.
design and PD&E study. We don't show right now that we have the funds available to construct anything at this point.
Well, okay, so thank you for that line of questions. I think that's really helpful. And one last one, just picking up on something you said, Greg, maybe I missed it in previous documentation. I don't know if we've actually talked about the state's review of the strategic intermodal system. And I didn't miss anything in that
No.
conversation. I didn't know that Capitol Circle and Mahan were removed from that list, and that is a substantial change. Obviously, we've got funding for a lot of the expansion of Capitol Circle over the last couple decades. I think it's come through that system, but I'm glad you're still working with them. I'm glad FDOT is reviewing this. I would like to know what that decision, I mean, if we can have a conversation next spring after you, or whenever you think the time is right, after you go through those conversations, I think that's really important for us to know what impact that's going to have on future funding, not just for this intersection, but any other projects that might be in the pipeline.
Yeah, and there was, a lot of the MPOs around the state had the same issue. We had been in discussions at the district level, and the district level had been working with us, and the next thing we knew, the plan was out, and a lot of the things that we thought were going to be there, like in this case, this one was not. In talking to some of our sister agencies around the state, they had the same issue. So I think that's why DOT is kind of opening it back up to go through that process again.
And if I could guess, this may have to do with budget challenges on the state end. I mean, FDOT is trying to make their budget work with an incredible amount of needs and continuing, less funding every year, it seems. To that point, this is just going to be on my mind as we go. The MCORS project, the reports were turned into the governor last Tuesday, on the 17th. And I am hopeful that we see for lack of a better phrase, a glitch bill, some bill that addresses the construction schedule or in the funding schedule, because this, if you've heard some of us make reference to the impact on, or our fear about the impact on FDOT's work program and funding, this is part of that, making sure that existing projects and things that are coming in the next 10, 20 years won't be shortchanged if we're building a new toll road, something like that. So I just want to keep that on our radar. So with that, very good line of questions. Again, thank you, Commissioner Richardson. I just wanted to note the bike ped projects. I should back up and say, great job. Jack, you began with thanking us for our patience, but I want to thank you, Greg, Allison, your entire team. You've worked through this exceptionally well during COVID and during all of our virtual meetings. I really liked the question and answer portion of the report. That was interesting, and I think that's going to be helpful going forward. For the bike ped projects, happened to be down at St. Mark's just yesterday and got a question about continuing the trail down 98 and connecting through Jefferson and maybe beyond that to Taylor and the larger trail system, the Florida Trails Network. So if I'm reading this correctly, you've got a lot of trails where you reference Jefferson County, for example, to Lake City, but you're focused on our portion within CRTPA. It seems like this is the first time we've really seen that Florida Trails connectivity, the Sun Trails, in our regional mobility plan. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's significant, and we had talked about that as a really critical piece if we're looking for future funding. So I just wanted to appreciate that, but also draw it out that this seems like a big step forward.
Okay, and just to clarify on that too, we are funded for construction on the coastal trail from St. Mark's to Lighthouse Road, correct, Jack?
Yeah, that would be in 2024, I believe.
So that would be basically through the entire width of Wakulla County, almost.
Excellent. Now, later, we are going to vote on the resolution, right?
Yes, so that's
Now,
actually, we need a
The
motion.
item in front of this board is the regional mobility plan. Rick, go ahead.
Was
Who was
Dr.
Dr. V,
Vizzi?
were you first? I'm sorry.
I think Commissioner Vizzi
Go ahead.
was first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just looking at, although I've looked at it before, I was looking at the bike pedestrian trail that comes from 90 through Quincy, Gretna, Chattahoochee, and back down. But if I recall correctly, during one of our previous discussions, there was supposed to be a bike pedestrian trail that comes from Leon through or to Havana. I don't see that in this blue line on this map, so I don't know if I'm missing something, or did we, for some reason, deleted the bike trail that comes from Tallahassee, Leon to, or either through or to Havana? Because I don't
No,
see that
sir,
here in this blue.
it should be there. I do see part of it, but then it's supposed to link up to Iron Bridge Road there on, I believe, 49, so we can, Jack, we can double check that, but there should be something that goes via Iron Bridge Road up to Havana.
Yeah, I surely appreciate when if we can make a note of that, so when I schedule the meeting, at least we make sure that is a part of it. Yeah, that's what I'm looking at too. So.
Yeah, I think it appears to be on this map, but it doesn't appear to be on the one in the packet. So Dr. V, we can go through that and make sure everything's on there.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Dozier brought up a good subject, an important subject about MCORs, and I did notice that the documents have been presented to the governor. When we had talked about this at CRTPA a couple meetings ago, we had basically deferred any action of approval or not approval until those documents were produced. Now that they have been presented to the governor, what is our timeline for when MCORs will come back to us as an agenda item? I know we had a long discussion about the needs assessment or lack thereof, and I think the opportunity cost, especially during today's times, for FDOT dollars is so high that we really need to be, this body, yes, we don't have a lot of say in what the future of MCORs is, at least on this northern route, but we do have a say on whether or not we can support or not support. When do we expect that to come back to us as an agenda item?
Commissioner Matter, our plan had been to make this a topic of your discussion at the retreat in January.
Okay.
When you look at the report, and I'll ask Commissioner Dozier, Commissioner Barfield to weigh in, I don't know that I would say it recommends anything other than proceed cautiously. We don't really see what the need is. So I felt we need to have at least some level of discussion, and I thought the retreat would be a better place to do it. We've got a little more time, a little less formal. And then if you all decided to take some type of formal action, we would probably come back at your February meeting or something like that. But I'm just not sure at this point exactly how we would respond to it. And Commissioners Dozier or Barfield, if you all want to weigh in.
Well, before we get too off track, can we go ahead and deal with the item in front of us?
Okay,
Which is the CRTPA resolution about the regional mobility plan. We need a motion to adopt it.
Yes, sir.
So move.
Second.
Okay? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No opposed? Okay, perfect. Can y'all, if you're going to talk about M-Course, we do it later under discussion.
Sure, that's up to you.
Let's move on along.
Okay.
All right, so now we're
We'll
going to
need
start.
we'll need to close the public hearing
Yes, sir. Close the public hearing
and then
open the
open
CRTPA meeting.
open the regular meeting. Yes, sir.
Do you need a motion to do so?
Do we need a motion to
I don't believe.
adjourn the public hearing?
Let's go ahead and do it anyway. Curtis, you made the motion.
Yes, sir.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, that meeting's adjourned. Now we're starting the next.
Open up the regular meeting. All right.
Yes, sir.
Ron, if we can have a roll call, please.
Commissioner Barfield? Here. Commissioner Allen?
Here.
Commissioner Merritt?
Here.
Commissioner Villalobos?
Here.
Commissioner Dozier? Commissioner Maddox?
Aye.
Commissioner Minor?
Here.
Commissioner Matlow?
Here.
Commissioner Richardson?
Here.
And did I miss anyone? Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, please, speak up.
I'm just making sure, didn't hear your name.
Yeah, I heard, I mean, you know,
Mayor.
if I did not hear his name, I
I'm
would
sorry?
be bringing the attention to that.
I'm not understanding a word you said, sir.
I said, if I did not hear the name of one of the mayors of the county, yes, you know, I will be bringing that to the attention of the board. So, yes, I heard his name.
Are there any agenda modifications?
Mr. Chairman, move approval of the agenda as is.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Greg, any public comments from the
No, sir,
public?
we did not receive any. I'm not sure that we got any public.
Any public comments? Taking none. Motion on consent.
Move approval, Mr.
Second.
Chairman.
Did we get
Second.
who did what?
Approval moved.
Move approval, Mr. Chairman.
Gotcha. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Greg?
Next item up are a couple of TIP amendments, and these will be roll call votes. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Lex to briefly review those amendments.
I will briefly review. There are two tip amendments being presented today. The first is for retrofitting pedestrian lighting in various locations throughout Leon County. They are currently studying the upgrades that will be necessary, and the final recommendations from that lighting study will produce these projects. And the second project is actually current year funding for design. It was our top #1 priority for the sidewalk in Quincy on US 90 from Chalk Street to Strong Road. And we have coordinated with FDOT. They will put some TAP funding, and we will use some of our current year SU funding to start the design on that project. And with that, I request approval of the resolution with a roll call vote.
Is there a motion?
Second.
Second.
I said, is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion. Moved.
Okay.
Hello.
All right. Any discussion?
Commissioner Barfield.
Any more discussion? Call for the motion? Aye?
Aye.
No,
Roll
this needs to be a
call.
roll call vote.
I'm sorry.
TIP amendment.
Please forgive me. This is my last meeting as chair, so that won't happen.
Commissioner Barfield?
Aye.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Merritt?
Aye.
Commissioner Villalobos?
Aye.
Commissioner Dozier?
Aye.
Commissioner Maddox?
Me.
Commissioner Minor?
Aye.
Commissioner Matlow?
Aye.
Commissioner Richardson?
Aye.
Unanimously passes.
Thank you. Greg, next item.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, item 7A is a review of our annual audit and financial statements. This was presented to the executive committee back in September, I believe, or August. And I'm going to turn this over to Suzanne for the introductions, and we'll take off.
Audits, very good.
Well,
Very exciting.
yes, it's very exciting because there are no issues. And actually, I have here from our James Moore and Associates, Wayne Durrett. He was the manager of this project, and he's here to make a brief presentation on the findings of the audit. Thank you.
We're not saying that CPA's drone on a little bit.
Oh, this will be
We're on a tight schedule.
5 minutes or less, I promise.
Perfect.
We're going for
He
less.
says that to everybody, not just CPA.
Not you, of course not.
So thank you for the introduction, Suzanne. As she said, I'm Wayne Durrett with James Moore and Company CPAs, and we have performed our financial statement audit as of September 30, 2019. First and foremost, I want to say thank you to CRTPA management and the team. I know audits aren't always the most fun for everybody, and they can be difficult, and this year with COVID especially. I do want to point out also that this was our first year of doing the audit, and with all the things that could have gotten in the way, they were able to get the audit issued 3 months earlier than last year. So great job overall. Just to start off a little bit about our audit process, we do issue 5 different reports and a letter to the board, and I'll jump right into those results. The letter I was referring to is under the required communications section. It details our responsibility in relation to the financial statement audit, and our responsibility is to issue an opinion on the financial statements, and management is responsible for the financial statements themselves. Sticking with the same letter, we are required to disclose to you in that letter any significant estimates or disclosures. Here we have identified the net pension liability as a significant estimate. $374,000 is the estimate of what this net pension liability would be. This is a theoretical number calculated by the actuary. And what this number represents is if the pension plan were to cease to exist at any point in time, this in theory is what the CRTPA would be on the hook for. I just also want to point out this is not something that the CRTPA needs to budget for, as this is a theoretical number. Under the corrected significant or uncorrected audit adjustment sections, we did not have any material accounting adjustments or anything like that that would be required to be disclosed here. Also, as part of this letter, if we had any significant difficulties or disagreements with management, anything like that, that would be required to be disclosed here. We had no issues. So moving into our actual audit reports, on page 4, we have our audit report on the financial statements. We have issued an unmodified opinion, which is essentially a clean opinion. So the financial statements are presented fairly in all material respects. Next up, on page 44, we have issued our report on internal control and compliance. Since our audit was performed in accordance with government auditing standards, if we did come across any issues in internal control that would be considered a material weakness or a significant deficiency, we would be required to disclose those. We had no such issues. Next up, we have our report on compliance for major federal programs. So since the CRTPA deals with a significant amount of federal grant dollars, we are required to do a mini compliance audit over those significant compliance items. If we noted any issues there, we would be required to disclose those. We noted no issues there as well. Next up, we have our independent accountant's examination report. Since the CRTPA is a local government in the state of Florida, there are requirements on what they can do with excess funds as far as investing and things like that. As part of our audit, we have issued a report over those compliance with those types of dollars, and we have noted no issues as well. Finally, we have our management letter, which is required by the Auditor General. Here in this letter, this is essentially a catch-all. If we noted anything else that would be required to be disclosed that wasn't covered in the other areas, it would get disclosed here. We had nothing else to disclose on the management letter. However, I will point out there is a section that deals with prior year audit comments, and we have noted here that prior year comments have been corrected. Finally, just to point out some key financial highlights from your financial statements, grant revenues, just under $1.4 million for the year, and total remaining fund balance is less than $200,000. The last thing I want to point out in the financial section is there is a unrestricted deficit, which shows of just roughly a negative $100,000. However, most of this is due to that net pension liability that I mentioned earlier, that is a theoretical number calculated by the actuary, which is, in theory, if the pension plan were to cease to exist, this is what the CRTPA would be on the hook for. So I just wanted to point out that's nothing to be concerned about. So that's all I had. Does anyone have any questions or comments?
Absolutely riveting. Rick, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think I know the answer to this, but I don't want to assume anything. So let's say next year comes, we also have a second unmodified opinion in a row. We are then deemed low risk.
Right.
What specific benefits will CRTPA enjoy with that low risk designation? I think I'll let you.
So as far as the low risk designee, what that potentially could do as an auditor, it will affect what major programs that I would have to select for audit. However, most of your grant funding is fairly concentrated, and it comes from one, maybe two major programs. If you were in a situation where the CRTPA was getting grants from multiple different programs, it would potentially reduce the amount that I would have to test as an auditor. However, typically, it's usually consolidated in one or two buckets anyways, so it may or may not matter.
So there's really not that much large lending that might give us a more favorable interest rate because much of our work is funded by.
It is possible that maybe there would be something from either on your grantor side or a lender that may recognize that.
Yeah.
I don't know how they're going to interpret that information, but it is possible.
Maybe the most tangible thing is it's actually requiring less audit work 2 years from now, right? Which would save us some money in the long run there.
Exactly.
Okay.
But however, it is something that you should point out as being low risk, that may have some other benefits that we're not even considering, but
Okay.
that's a good point.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. Kristen?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Moore. I think it's significant that in the last few years, our staff has done a great job resolving a number of issues. So to get to an audit where there are no comments, no issues, and we're just in that waiting period that Commissioner Minor mentioned, that's significant. So thank you for your good work, Greg, to everyone else on your team. Excellent work in recent years. And I think for the layman, we often think of the pension liability as the FRS issue that the state did a number of years ago, that we have to deal with on every audit in every government board. Is that correct?
Right, it is the Accounting Standards Board came out with the new standard that effectively, unfortunately, the big picture is it makes a lot of local governments' financial statements look terrible.
Yes.
And it is, make sure financial statements a lot more wordy and you have a lot more disclosures, but the budgetary impacts for these multi-employer pension plans isn't that significant.
Right. All right, well, thank you very much, and yeah, this is a great report.
Thank you. I'll give you the honor then of making the motion to
I
accept it.
will make the motion to accept. Thank you.
Second.
Second.
Commissioner Minor, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Excellent. Greg?
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Chairman, next up is the election of chair and
Thank you,
vice
Wayne.
chair.
Thank you.
Very exciting again. Thank you.
So as you all know, these are high-paying positions
Yes, they are.
and eagerly sought after every year, so.
I make a motion for Jeremy Matlow to be chair. Commissioner Matlow?
Just for a minute, Commissioner Maddox, I will second that motion, but I have a question for clarity.
I apologize.
Okay, this is
I yield
procedural.
to Commissioner.
This is mostly procedural. So now the vice chair, will that come from one of the smaller counties, or will that also come from the Leon County?
Leon, typically.
Will come from Leon County, the vice chair?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Typically,
This time
city,
we-
county, small county.
Okay.
Mine was, I kind of skipped because I've actually
Because
been CRTPA chair
I
twice.
was, and then you became, and so now it's city and county. Okay, just asking for clarity.
My term should have been a City of Tallahassee commissioner, but
Oh, okay.
And why was it not?
because Nick made the motion for me and y'all approved it.
So you just kick the city to the side.
Now, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I just want to make sure that there's going to be a small county on the executive committee. for
That's
what-
me.
Okay,
That-
fine.
yeah, he-
Past chair.
Your past chair is.
Just making sure.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, we got a motion by Nick Maddox.
Second.
Jeremy, Second?
Okay, it's for Commissioner Matlow, right?
Yes,
Correct.
ma'am.
Be chair. You
Correct.
want to do that?
I'm gonna do it.
Step up.
Very exciting. And notice that I won the bet with Commissioner Maddox over here. He figured we'd never be done by 3.
Good job.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, who's nomination for vice chair?
Motion, I move Commissioner Dozier for
Second.
vice chair.
Second.
Third.
4.
Okay,
Call the question.
Oh,
Hey, now.
we have a motion for Commissioner Dozier and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
aye.
I'm not going to oppose it, Kristen. Guys, I enjoyed it.
Thank you all.
Comes with conditions.
It's been tricky with this coronavirus thing. But all right, Greg?
All right. Next up is the DOT report.
All right.
319 is going great, by the way, Bryant. Thank you.
What did you say?
319 is going great.
Looking good. I just drove it this morning too.
Next up, my report. I did want to point out, under the correspondence, our esteemed council did receive a significant recognition from Qatar as their past chair. Congratulations on
Shameless
that.
plug you were talking about earlier?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Part of it.
Very shameless plug.
I will note from the photograph, he apparently, in the reverse of what most older gentlemen have, he has more hair now than he had in the
I
picture.
told him he's wearing an afro now.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if I might, yes, many congratulations to our general counsel, Thornton. Thank you for your
Great.
long service to this board. And even though we passed over it on consent, I just wanted to make a note that the resolution of how CRTPA would conduct meetings in response to COVID, I just really appreciated that. I asked Greg about it during our call, our briefing last week, and he said that that was your suggestion and you drafted that resolution. Any of us, any board, any local government that can reinforce our commitment to public health is very important these days. So thank you very much for entering that into our agenda, and I'm glad it passed. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, the
Yes,
only thing I wanted to mention, DOT is currently taking public comments on their Orange Avenue Project Development Environmental Study. We had a teleconference with DOT staff last week and shared some comments with them. We also had an agency meeting with Blueprint, city and county staff on Friday, and they'll be sending us comments related to that project as well. The project is moving along. They do have design funded, I believe, in next fiscal year from Monroe Street to Spring Hill. We've actually asked them to extend the limits west to Lake Bradford to take into account the Liberty Park area, Mr. Richard, that we've talked a lot about there. So we're hoping they can move that forward as well. And I don't believe, I'll ask Jack, Greg, Rhonda, is anybody, anything that I missed?
Midtown pedestrian safety improvements.
Thank you. I'm going to let Greg cover that one because
Okay.
he's put a whole lot of work into getting this done.
We're excited to announce that the department, beginning January 4th, is going to start the Midtown safety pedestrian improvements, which essentially include the construction of 3 rectangular rapid flashing beacons at Beard, 3rd Avenue by Cool Beans, and at Calhoun Street.
Thank you.
All right.
When's our next meeting, Greg?
Be January. We're going to cancel the December meeting, so we can kind of focus on getting the RMP wrapped up in that documentation done. And the date in January escapes me off the top of my head, but it will be in January, and it will be a retreat since we weren't able to do one this past October.
Okay, now we're going to move on to items from CRTP. Nick caught my attention first. I don't know who was first.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll try to be brief,
They
Mr. Chair.
all sprouted up like that.
I want to bring greetings from the MPOAC as the chair and give you a quick report of the meeting. The meeting started at 3:20. Min approval was 4 o'clock, 4:05. We took the executive director report, which was the UPWP report, as well as MPOAC staff directory meeting. 4:11, we received some agency reports from FDOT as well as FHWA. 4:34, we started to get into our legislative policies. Quick report on what was approved. The number one policy was the expansion of expanding transportation revenue sources and stabilizes transportation fund levels with some key recommendations. Carl will give you more detail on these when he gives his report at the retreat. The second thing was regulating distracted driving by prohibiting the handheld use of electronic wireless communication devices and other similar distraction devices while operating a motor vehicle. Third, added provision to the Florida Sunshine Law to allow all government entities to hold virtual meetings during a declared emergency period, plus a period of 90 days past the declared emergency dates. The reason that's important is because the NPOAC could not meet because they could not meet virtually. So we put that as a part there. Allow the SIS funds to be used on roads, transit, and other transportation facilities not designated on the SIS if improvements will enhance mobility or support freight transportation. 5 is establish flexible and predictable funding for transit projects, capital and operating, identified through the metropolitan transportation planning process by removing various funding limitations for the State Transportation Trust Fund. 6 recognizes that federal metropolitan transportation planning funds shall not be regarded as state funds for purpose of expenditure. And last but not least, number 7, support the advancement of innovation, transportation, mobility solutions, and policies that promote creative approaches to addressing transportation needs while simultaneously protecting citizens from malice, tampering with such technologies by making tampering a punishable offense. A good meeting, a lot of commissioners showed up, of course. Every policy was unanimously approved by the Policy Advisory Committee as well as the Staff Director Committee as well. Greg participated in the Staff Committee meeting. And like I said, Carl will be coming to you all to make presentation in more depth on each policy each of the 7 policies that was accepted. We adjourned at 5:15. The meeting was held in person in Orlando. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Any questions?
Just go around the room. Okay, Curtis?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I wanted to talk about a project that I wanted to ask. It's an Orange Avenue project. If we could have DOT take a look at it. It's if you're traveling west from South Adams on Orange Avenue, it's at the intersection of Orange Avenue and Wanish Way. It goes from 4 lanes to 2 lanes right at FAMU High. Well, what happens is the right lane is a turn lane right onto Wanish Way. The left lane goes straight onto Orange Avenue. Well, what people are doing, they speed up in that turn lane and they try to cut in front of the people that are going straight on Orange Avenue. And we have seen a number of accidents at that intersection because of that. If not accidents, near accidents. We just had a tremendous accident just recently at that intersection because of that. And so we need, I don't know what can be done, but if we could ask DOT to take a look at that intersection and see what can be done to prevent that from happening.
Brian, are you listening?
Okay. Okay.
That's who I would, that's how get something done, is that man right back?
All right. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
And if we could just, maybe have an update at some point on what can be done and when. That's been a terrible intersection. Like I said, I think it was Saturday night, and I've got a neighbor that lives on that corner, and I was talking to he and his wife this past weekend, and they said they see people do that all the time, and it's either accidents or near accidents because people are trying to make that.
Can you follow through with Bryant and send an email?
Okay.
Just looking at it. And
Figure out?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all I had.
Thank you, sir. Kristen?
Hold on, I just want to make sure. So you're talking about the through lane that turns into a right turn lane at Wanish Avenue on Orange Avenue?
Orange Avenue.
Right.
Okay, I'm looking at it here online. I just want to make sure I got the right spot.
Okay.
Right by FAMU High.
Right.
Kristen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to say something about the Midtown update. Thank you for that. Greg, sorry, the hawk walks, is that what we're still calling them? The flashing light, the pedestrian lights?
Yeah, the rectangular rapid flashing beacon, the same one that is actually at Fifth Avenue in Thomasville at Whataburger.
Right,
Exact same
thank you.
thing.
So you press the button. A lot of folks are getting used to these crosswalks now, that you're supposed to come to a stop even though it's a flashing yellow. If my memory serves, we were talking about this during legislative session and just before shutdown last year. There was some conversation about, at the legislature, or I thought asking the feds perhaps about using red lights for those walks versus yellow, because not everyone understands that they're supposed to stop. Again, I think they've been around for a while now, and I see more people paying attention to them and actually stopping at those walks. So I am glad, if we're getting a couple more, maybe this is just going to reinforce it. But unless anything changed, my understanding is they still have to remain yellow. Is that right, Greg?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So these two things are not directly related, but I think the hawk walks are a good option for us in some areas of our community. Commissioner Richardson, you just brought up an area where it wouldn't help in those, traffic accidents. We've also seen, unfortunately, a number of hit-and-run accidents for pedestrians in just the last few months. And I think this is something that we need to pay attention to. It may just be more people out driving as the economy started ramping back up this fall, more people going to school, the legislature back in town, and others, not blaming anyone, but just more traffic on the roads. But I do want us to pay attention to that, and if there's something we need to do as a public safety messaging, particularly Leon and Tallahassee, I think it may be something good going into the spring, just to remind people. This would not help those who are just simply reckless driving. That's just really unfortunate that a lot of these folks have been the victims of really reckless driving, but anything we can do, I think that's something we should focus on.
Well, no, I'm sorry. Just to follow up, if you're finished, just real quickly on that. Actually, the Tallahassee Police Department was doing some stepped-up enforcement on pedestrian activity in certain areas of the city, basically focusing on, drivers obeying the speed limit and make sure they're understanding what their responsibilities are, as well as pedestrians and cyclists as well. That actually, they were doing that through the 19th and about probably 8 or 10 areas throughout the city, it looks like.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, our thanks to TPD for doing that, and I know they are as concerned as all of us about that, about the recent fatalities and injuries. So, thank you.
Thank you.
The other thing I was going to bring up, Commissioner Maddox, thank you for giving us an update on MCORs. I know some of the statewide boards, it is an extra challenge for the virtual meetings, so I'm glad you were able to attend that. An issue came up during our legislative workshop in October, and I think we got this resolved, but I just wanted to bring it into our discussion. Maybe this is something we could talk about at the retreat, although I know you already have a pretty long agenda, so perhaps it could be part of Carl's update. Making sure that each of our respective commissions works with CRTPA on our legislative priorities to make sure they're described in the right way. This is something that I think, particularly Leon Tallahassee, we've evolved on and learned a lot about in recent years, but there were a couple of projects on that list that had already received funding for the county commission agenda, and our staff's committed to working with CRTPA to make sure that we are making the right kind of ask and not basically asking for the same project in two different methods, which might confuse things at some point. I'll leave it there. But Greg, if there's just any direction that you could give us, or anything that we could talk about to make sure that our respective boards are in the right posture and that we're all working together, I'd appreciate that.
Right, yeah, and the biggest thing, just very quickly on that, the biggest thing is not to ask for a project we've already got funding on. The issue that we run into there is, let's say hypothetically, one of the jurisdictions makes a request that we have money on, and the governor line item vetoes that. the department nor ourselves are unable to spend any funds on that project for that next fiscal year. So that's the biggest issue that you run into, is possibly losing funding for another project from something that wasn't vetted through the
Won't do
CRT.
legislative asks on road projects. Thank you. Rick?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just want to thank Mr. Williams again for his recognition at Cutter. And also on agenda item 10C, I noticed that the TAC and the CMAC couldn't meet for lack of quorum. And I think I might have seen one or both of those committees also not have quorum recently. How often does this happen?
That's actually the first time in a while that we have not had a quorum.
Okay.
But the issue, we had a couple of members on both of them that weren't comfortable meeting in person. So we basically, we went ahead and set the meeting up and had them review and took any comments that they had, but technically they couldn't take action on anything because they didn't have a physical quorum in place. But we have issues on and off with it in the past, but really, quite frankly, since the COVID, it has not been an issue. But we were, that's something we've got a couple of folks that are interested in joining the CMAC, so I hope to bring them back to you probably in February for consideration for appointment.
That's good. It's important for us that those two committees meet
Yes.
and have quorum.
Are they sunshine boards?
They are.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. Dr. V?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This question is for FDOT. I may have maybe slightly skip understanding this. When we applied for the Arapagos Road, which is County Road 65 resurfacing, I think the amount that was provided for the funding, the construction is estimated to start August 2021, and the amount I think we requested was the amount given was $3.6 million, which we determined was not enough to add the shoulder paving. So I don't know where we are with the additional fund that we requested to add shoulder paving to Arapagos Road. If the additional is included in the 3.6, because I forgot what it originally was, and if not, when should we be expecting the additional funding so we can give the citizens a better understanding of the funding cost of this project, since it is estimated to start construction August of 2021?
Dr. V, we can follow up with DOT and find out. I don't know the answer to that one.
I appreciate that.
Scrap or a Scott project.
I think all of those will be a part of the conversation we'll have when I schedule the meeting about the RMP and everything else.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. Anybody else? We're adjourned.
Very quickly.
Oh, sorry.
When we had the vote on the regional mobility plan, I completely forgot it had to be a voice vote, or excuse me, a roll call vote. So if we can quickly open up the public hearing,
Reopen the public hearing?
and then motion and a second, and we'll do a roll call vote, and we'll be good to go. Sorry
move.
about that.
Mr. Chair, Greg, do we need to rescind our previous vote, or it just doesn't?
To make it clean, council,
What you need to do is just to re-vote on the matter. Since the vote was supposed to be a roll call vote, the vote, which was by unanimous consent, was not considered valid. So just a roll call vote would be
Okay.
sufficient.
Who made the motion last time? Anybody know?
I don't know.
Mr.
Does it
Dozier.
matter?
I
I
think
guess it doesn't matter. Who's making the motion this time?
Go ahead, Chris.
I did.
It doesn't matter who made the motion, since you're doing
I think we can just do the roll call.
Dr. V?
you're not recalling it, you're just revoting it.
Yeah.
Motion to approve.
No, wait, I think we can just, no, all we need is just to have the roll call vote.
Sorry for the confusion. It's confusing to me, too, so let's do the roll.
Ready? Commissioner Barfield,
Aye.
Commissioner Allen,
Aye.
Commissioner Merritt,
Aye.
Commissioner Vilbivici,
Me.
Commissioner Dozier, Commissioner Maddox,
Not present.
Commissioner Minor,
Aye.
Commissioner Matlow,
Aye.
Commissioner Richardson.
Aye.
Okay, is
And
that it? Is there a
that-
motion to close the public hearing?
Do we still have a quorum to be able to do that?
We do.
Yes.
So Betsy, I assume you made the motion to close the public hearing? Is
Yep.
there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody got anything else? All right, we're adjourned.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you all. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Y'all have a good Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Christmas.
Yeah, happy.